Here now is Solutionaries.
We're in a crisis moment in how local election officials handle these ballots.
We want to live in a democracy where everyone possible is able to cast a ballot and have their voice heard.
Every American citizen, once they've paid their debt to society, deserves to have that right restored to them immediately.
College students have the power to make that change.
It's our responsibility as citizens to be informed, to do the things that we need to do to ensure that we keep the republic.
Today, we're looking at voting in multiple states. In Florida, we're dissecting automatic voter registration. It's happening in many states. Could it become more prevalent? In Virginia, we'll take a look at the push to get students registered to vote on a college campus. In America, voting is your right, unless it's taken away. For many convicted felons, it happens.
At the age of 15, I lost my voting rights before I had them.
In some states, if you're a felon, you can never vote again. In other states, everyone can vote unless you're currently in prison. Some states restore the rights of felons automatically after completing a sentence, but in other states, it's not quite as simple. We're unpacking it all. I'm Louis Bolden. This is Solutionaries.
Have power represented here today, and I come to ask you to go all out to get every Negro in this county registered to vote.
From Dr. Martin Luther King to Congressman John Lewis.
Madam Speaker, you have heard me say on occasion that the right to vote is precious, almost sacred.
The fight for voting rights has a strong history right here in Atlanta.
We've had some of our greats, like John Lewis behind me, whose literal life was about making sure that everyone has access to the ballot, access to vote. If you see something that's not right, that's not just, you have an obligation to do something about it.
And it's just as important today as ever before.
Close elections, tight elections, Georgia has become a legitimate swing state where you never know which party is going to come out on top.
This day and age, are we still having problems with people being registered to vote?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We have issues with maintaining accurate voter rolls and getting every eligible voter on the rolls. Fundamental to voting rights is getting people on the voter rolls. We can throw a polling location on every corner, and if you're not on the voter rolls, you can't walk into that polling location and vote. The first step is to get on the voter rolls and to get registered.
Which is where automatic voter registration, or AVR, makes a difference.
Automatic voter registration started in 2016 in Georgia. It was done as an administrative decision. It was then Secretary of State Brian Kemp, the Attorney General's office, and the Department of Driver Services. They said, why don't we just start automatic voter registration? It'll perhaps prevent us from being sued and also result in more accurate voter registration lists because people will have their information verified.
Here's how AVR works, at least here in Georgia. Say you go to get a driver's license. Well, if you are eligible, the state will automatically register you to vote, unless you specifically opt out. Same goes for if you are just moving here, or if you change addresses.
The result? Voting is at an all-time high. Since 2016, the number of registered voters has jumped by 1 million to 7.7 million Georgians. And in the 2020 election, a record-breaking 66% of voters cast their ballots. The biggest growth among minorities, those in lower-income communities, and young people.
So I'm James Wilson. I'm a student at Georgia State University.
I'm Alex Ames. I'm a student at Georgia Tech.
I'm Julian Fortuna. I'm a student at University of Georgia.
What I see with AVR is that it gives people more confidence. They come in and they're not asking, am I registered to vote? Can you check my this? Can you check my that? They know they're registered to vote, and they come in more confident because of that.
We want to live in a democracy where everyone possible is able to cast a ballot and have their voice heard. It's how we end up with representation that doesn't frustrate people and doesn't vote in ways that we're like, how did this happen? This isn't what people want.
Because of AVR, we have a huge proportion of our population in Georgia registered to vote. And that does a lot of good, but unfortunately I don't think everyone wants to see that.
There have been hiccups here, which caught the attention of the ACLU.
Automatic voter registration was unfortunately removed in an administrative decision. We saw a significant drop-off in the number of folks in Georgia who were able to get registered and get their registrations updated.
So unfortunately, here in Georgia, voter suppression is still very, very real.
State leaders blame a software glitch on the Driver's Services website. They tell us now it's been fixed.
Does automatic voter registration help one party more than the other?
It doesn't. It's just about your core ability to be on the voter rolls so that you can access your ballot and get your ballot counted. Regardless of what party you support, the primary way that Georgians have been able to get registered and to get their registrations updated has been automatic voter registration.
20 states and D.C. have approved AVR, saying it not only brings more voters, it catches duplicate registrations and saves taxpayers money.
Automatic voter registration, no matter who you ask and what party, you'll get different views on it, but I don't think you can dispute that it has expanded voting opportunities and access and accuracy.
What are the cons to AVR?
When you look at the cons to having automatic voter registration, there's none. There's simply none. Any argument that could come up against automatic voter registration is not strong enough, because the point of the matter is everyone has the right to vote.
One day, Georgia will be a better state.
And that, activists say, is walking in the footsteps of giants.
When you go to vote, you expect to see crisp pieces of paper, the names of candidates listed in order, races and issues neatly fit into boxes and clearly separated. Also, all of it easy to read and see. But what about in a language you speak? And what if that language isn't English? Turns out it's actually federal law that we have to print ballots in other languages. According to the Voting Rights Act, if a place has more than 5% of their voters or more than 10,000 voters who speak a language that isn't English, they're required to print ballots in that other language. And that comes out to a lot of people. According to the last census, more than 24.2 million people lived in places where they needed to have ballots in a language that those people spoke. And those ballots span languages from more than 30 countries and across 5 continents. While it seems like a no-brainer to print these ballots in a language that isn't English, it's been an uphill battle for decades. In Florida, which is one of the most consequential states for elections and has the 3rd highest population of Spanish speakers, counties just agreed to print ballots in Spanish. That's more than 4 million people with the new access to vote. And in Michigan, with the highest population of Arabic speakers, people are still fighting to get Arabic on their ballots. But maybe the biggest thing isn't the translation, but what it says about who we think should and shouldn't be able to vote. Election experts have said for years that breaking the language barrier is the easiest way to get more people to vote. And in the end, isn't that what we want? More Americans voting, making their voices heard, no matter what language that voice is in.
Stay with us as we bring you to Orlando and introduce you to the man who is making it his mission to give a voice to the otherwise voiceless.
In the weeks before the primary election, you know, when someone approached me and said, Desmond, I know you're excited that you're going to get the vote for your wife, right? And it was like they took a knife and just stuck it in the old wound and twisted it, reminding me, right, that I'm not even good enough to vote for my wife.
And show you how young people are working to make sure college students are prepared to make their vote count.
Just because you get convicted of a felon doesn't make you any less of a human being.
I was young and pretty much just made some bad decisions.
At the age of 15, I lost my voting rights before I had them.
I think that we're still living in an era of Jim Crow, no matter how you put it.
Every American citizen, once they've paid their debt to society, deserves to have that right restored to them immediately. My name is Desmond Meade, and I am the Executive Director of Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. FRC is an organization led by directly impacted people, or people with previous felony convictions, as well as family members who have loved ones that have been impacted by the justice system. To tell someone that in spite of the fact that you served your time and paid your debt to society, that you should not have a say in how your community or state or country is ran. It was something wrong with that.
It makes you feel like you're no longer an American.
It sounds to me like they're trying to suppress convicted felons, which are human beings, just like you or him. And everybody's got a right.
You know, you want to talk about a moment? You want to talk about my wife Sheena running for office. She ran for House District 46, right? Getting all excited about it. And weeks before the primary election, you know, and someone approached me and said, Desmond, I know you're excited that you're going to get the vote for your wife, right? And it was like they took a knife and just stuck it in the old wound and twisted it, reminding me, right, that I'm not even good enough to vote for my wife.
Is that it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, it doesn't matter what background you come from, all of us believe in democracy.
From the very beginning, right, I knew that this issue was more than just an African-American issue. It was more than just a Democrat versus Republican issue. That this was an all-American issue.
Let's go to election night. 64% of the vote?
64, I won't say 65.
More than 64, yeah.
Yeah, let's round up, right? 65%.
When you saw that final vote tally?
I was, ooh, Jesus Lord, I was blown away. We're celebrating this moment. We're celebrating the love that got us here.
Yes, I feel free. I feel like a full citizen.
As a state attorney, I mean, all the numbers and statistics support people who are more engaged civically are less likely to commit crime.
I thought once I had made a mistake that I would never be able to do that or even have a decision in anything anymore.
After we passed Amendment 4, the politics came in. That's a different conversation. We didn't believe that any American citizen should have to choose between putting food on their table or being able to vote, paying their rent or mortgage or being able to vote, right? And what we found was that even a lot of those fines or legal financial obligations were also attached to their driver's license being suspended, right? And so it was like a double whammy. I'm blocking you from participating in democracy, and I'm also blocking you from fully engaging in our economy. If I'm going out to register people to vote, I'm not trying to register more Democrats. I'm not trying to register more Republicans. You know what I'm trying to register? More investors in our democracy. I want you to invest in our democracy. Whether you think like me or not, your participation is an investment in it, and the more people we have investing in it, the more vibrant it is, and everyone benefits.
I did it, but I was
Hey guys, can I pet your dog?
Yes. What is this for?
So I'm with VT Engage, which is the Center for Leadership and Service Learning, and basically we're doing some voter education today. It's great talking to you guys. My name is Maya Mehdi. I'm the director of Hokies Vote Caucus. If you use this QR code, you can put in your address and it will tell you what representatives are up for election. I've always been really passionate about voting rights specifically. Both my parents are Syrian immigrants, so I was always raised around this culture of, how awesome democracy is and how it really is a beautiful thing to have your voice valued and to speak up and to empower the people around you. Do you have a second to talk about voting by any chance? Sure. College students have been at the forefront of political activism since forever. UC Berkeley is a huge hub of political activity. It's where the disability rights movement started and where it continues to this day. And so I know that college students have the power to make that change. And I know that students like that exist on every campus.
The voter turnout and the voter registration that's come from the Virginia Tech campus is incredible compared to other colleges. Why is that?
I think you're seeing a group of students that are motivated. We have Ut Prosim as the university motto, and so wanting to make social change in their communities and realizing that this is one of the ways that they're able to do that. I'm Jess Davis. I'm the Assistant Director for Leadership and Civic Engagement in VT Engage, the Center for Leadership and Service Learning. I think we're seeing a lot more divisiveness in society broadly. There's a lot of myths and disinformation that is out there, and so this allows students to come together, have a conversation about a topic, and really kind of walk away and think through, what does this mean for my community? Because we also know that solutions look different for every community, right? It's not going to be the same, and so how can we talk through what those look like for our community here?
What are some of the limitations? What do you run into when you're trying to educate students on voting rights?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest limitation to students voting is really that time piece, right? And I don't think it's different for any other person too, right? But we know our college students are taking classes, they are holding part-time jobs, some of them might be full-time jobs, right? They have all these other things that are happening in their lives, and so carving out that time can sometimes be difficult, particularly when I think about our first-year voters, right? There's nothing like going to the polling place on election day. You're going, you're getting your ballot, you fill it out, you get your sticker. I think it's a really exciting time, and so we're seeing a lot more of our students wanting to wait rather than do early voting options so that they can have that experience. And so sometimes you're like, oh man, I have a big test coming up, right? Things happen, and we see that time and time again. And so we want to make voting more fun so that we can think about what are some of those early voting pieces that we can make that just as fun and exciting as what it looks like on election day.
Registrars in Virginia in this area made it very hard for college students to vote. They only wanted them to vote where their parents lived. And so the biggest change we've seen is students can now choose. Do we want to vote on campus? Do we want to vote here? Or perhaps we know the candidates and the issues a little better in our hometown, whether it's Northern Virginia or Harrisonburg. So that's been a great improvement.
And something unique to Virginia Tech is there's actually a voting precinct on campus.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Since the 2016 election, they've been voting in the Squires Student Center. And so if students are registered to vote here on campus, they're able to use that precinct to vote. And so it's a pretty fun time. The entire ballroom is kind of decked out in people for the precinct to be able to cast their ballots.
How were you able to get the whole campus to rally around this?
Well, I think asking people to register to vote is a pretty easy thing to rally around. I think it's one of those rights that we have as a citizen that we want to exercise. But I think the important piece too is that we really have support from top down. It's really exciting and great to see a new generation kind of coming up and having that excitement.
One of the things we want is for college students and younger voters to realize that they are a powerful bloc. If they just get together and register and believe that their vote matters, they could have a huge impact.
I feel like voting is the first step, and then you can push people to really be activists and be the person to take that first step to make the change they want to see.
This episode of Solutionaries is just getting started. You can learn more about voting and what drives people to the polls, including those little I voted stickers.
The hope is that
as those people swagger around with their I voted sticker, other people will be similarly motivated.
Just download the News 6 Plus app on your TV, select Solutionaries, and keep watching. You can also see all of our other episodes on News 6 Plus. The app is free and easy to download. Just head over to clickorlando.com if you need instructions.